The night my backyard turned into a floodlight-lit crime scene, I was standing there in sweatpants, staring at my empty pool like I'd lost my mind. 10 minutes earlier, I thought I was just dealing with an entitled HOA Karen. Then the helicopter showed up, and I realized my pool was never the real target. I moved into Maple Glen because it felt quiet, in a way my life hadn't been in years. Small streets, trimmed lawns, people who waved but didn't ask questions. I wanted that. I'd done my time in chaos. Now I wanted a fence, a grill, and a pool I could actually enjoy without somebody yelling my last name across a parking lot. The pool was the whole reason I bought the place. Not some giant resort thing, just a clean private backyard pool behind a solid wooden fence. My property, my mortgage, my problem to maintain. And then, on a Tuesday afternoon, I caught a woman leaning over my fence like she owned the view. She had that look, hands-on hips, oversized sunglasses, the kind of confident smirk that says, "I've never heard the word no, and I don't plan on starting today." She didn't introduce herself like a neighbor. She announced herself like a manager. "You need to have the pool ready by Saturday," she said, like she was placing an order at a drive-thru. I actually blinked at her. "I'm sorry, what?" She nodded like I'd just agreed. "The Homeowners Association approved my request. I'm hosting my niece's birthday party here." There are moments where your brain tries to protect you by pretending you misheard. I almost laughed because it was so ridiculous it didn't feel real. "This is my pool," I said, slower now because apparently I was talking to someone who needed subtitles. "On my property." Her smile dropped. "Clean. Instant. The neighborhood owns it, and if you refuse, we'll fine you and take legal action." That's when my stomach tightened, not because I believed her, but because she sounded practiced, like she'd said that sentence to other people and watched them fold. I stared at her and said the only thing that mattered: "We don't have an HOA." She waved a hand like I was a child interrupting an adult conversation. "You're going to regret being difficult." Then she walked off and left me standing there wondering if I'd just stepped into some weird local nightmare nobody warned me about. Over the next couple days, she kept showing up. Not politely, not once. She dropped by like it was her job. Wednesday, she was at my porch with a box of party supplies. Balloons, paper plates, a plastic banner that said "Happy Birthday" in loud glitter letters. She didn't knock. She just stacked it all like delivery. Thursday, she was back tapping a clipboard like it was a weapon. "This is community use," she said, as if repeating it made it true. "You're obligated." Friday, she came again, closer this time, voice lower, sharper. "If you don't cooperate," she said, "I'll make sure the neighborhood knows exactly what kind of man you are." And I'm not proud of this. But that last line is what got under my skin. Not because I cared what she thought, but because I could see the play, the pressure, the public shaming, the social squeeze until you give up just to make it stop. That night, I sat at my kitchen table staring at those stupid balloons on my porch. I felt this heavy, hot frustration in my chest. Like, seriously, this is what I'm doing now. Fighting over my own backyard. For a second I thought about just letting it happen. One afternoon, a bunch of kids splashing, then she goes away. And then I pictured her face when she said, "We'll fine you," like she couldn't wait to punish me for existing. I pushed my chair back, stood up, and said out loud to an empty room, "No." Around midnight, when the street went quiet and the only light was the orange glow of a lamp down the road, I walked outside with my pool pump humming beside me. If she wanted community access so badly, fine. She could have access to every last drop of water right into the ground. I started draining the pool. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a movie moment. Just a steady, relentless sound of water leaving inch by inch while the night air stayed cold and still. By sunrise, the pool was empty. The ladder looked ridiculous, like a prop leading nowhere. And right on schedule, here she came. Karen stomped up my driveway with her phone in her hand like she'd been waiting all night for this moment. She didn't ask. She screamed. "I'm calling the police!" she shrieked. "You destroyed community property." I leaned against the fence, arms crossed, and watched her pace like she was rehearsing for court. "This is destruction of HOA assets," she barked into her phone loud enough for half the street. I said it again, calm this time like I was explaining gravity. "Karen, there is no HOA." She snapped her head toward me. "Don't call me Karen," she hissed. "You people love labeling women when they enforce rules." I almost laughed. "Lady, I'm labeling you because that's literally your name." Minutes later, a patrol car rolled up with its lights flashing, and suddenly my quiet little street had curtains twitching. Neighbors poking their heads out like prairie dogs, whispering. Karen ran up to the officer before he could even close his door. "He vandalized our pool," she said, voice trembling with fake outrage. "He emptied it. He's refusing to comply with community regulations." The officer turned to me. "Sir, is that true?" I walked over slowly, grabbed the folder I'd already set on my patio table because, yes, I prepared. I held out one sheet of paper. "Before we do anything," I said, "you're going to want to see this." It was my deed. My name. The parcel map. The pool clearly inside my boundary. His eyebrows climbed as he read it. He looked at the pool. Then he looked at Karen. "Ma'am," he said carefully, "this appears to be private property." Karen's face twitched. "That can't be right." The officer's partner stepped up, scanning the paperwork. "Also," he added, "I'm not seeing any registered homeowners association for this subdivision." Karen didn't blink. She doubled down. "It exists. I'm the president." The officer's tone got colder. "Filing a false police report is a crime." That's when Karen's confidence wobbled for the first time. Just a fraction. Like the floor shifted under her heel. And then another vehicle pulled in behind the patrol car. A second cruiser, but not the same uniform. The man stepping out wore a suit jacket with a county badge pinned over his chest. Sheriff Rick Mercer. He took one look at me and his face cracked into a grin. "No way," he said. "Carter, you're kidding." I hadn't seen him in years, not since a storm relief operation that felt like a lifetime ago. He walked right past Karen like she was a mailbox and shook my hand like we were old friends. Karen's head snapped back and forth between us. "You know him," she whispered. Mercer chuckled. "Know him? This guy saved more people in this county than half the politicians who put their name on billboards." Karen went pale. Not dramatic pale, real pale. The kind that happens when someone realizes they've been talking tough to the wrong person. Mercer turned toward her and the smile left his face. "Ma'am," he said official. "Now you claimed a homeowners association exists here. You claimed this man's pool was community property. That's fraud." Karen lifted her hands like she could smooth the air. "I didn't mean." Before she could finish, Mercer pulled out his phone. "You want to explain this too?" He held up a video clear as day. Karen at my fence 2 nights ago laughing with someone off camera. "He won't even know until the party's already started," she'd said. A couple neighbors actually gasped. One of them muttered, "She did that to my driveway last year." Karen's mouth opened, then shut like her brain couldn't find the right lie fast enough. I took a breath, stepped forward, and kept my voice steady. "I've got another clip." I hit play on my own phone, my security footage of her slipping into my backyard earlier that week, clipboard in hand, taping a fake notice to my door. Big bold letters, "Pool reserved for community use. Failure to comply will result in fines." The street got louder, angry. People weren't whispering anymore. Karen's voice cracked. "I was just trying to take what didn't belong to you," I said, "and it came out sharper than I expected. That's what you were trying to do." Mercer nodded to his deputy. "Ma'am, turn around." When the cuffs clicked, Karen snapped, kicking, twisting, trying to pull away like a trapped animal. "This isn't over," she screamed. "You'll regret this." I leaned on the fence and watched them guide her toward the car. "Karen," I called out, not yelling, just loud enough. "You don't get to run other people's lives just because you like the sound of your own authority." They drove off. And for about 10 minutes, I felt the relief settle in. Like, okay, done, problem solved. Then my phone buzzed that night with an unknown number. I almost ignored it. I should have ignored it. But something in my gut told me not to. I answered, and a man's voice came through, low, controlled, not angry, which was worse. "You think you won," he said. I stood on my porch staring into the dark street. "Who is this?" He gave a short laugh. Karen was just the face. "Now you've got our attention." The line went dead. I didn't sleep. I did that thing where every tiny creak becomes a full story in your head. The wind hits a branch and suddenly you're sitting upright listening. Near dawn, my security system pinged motion at the back fence. I pulled up the feed and saw 2 hooded figures' flashlights sweeping my yard like they were measuring it. They didn't climb over. They didn't touch anything. They just studied. I called Sheriff Mercer. He didn't ask questions. His tone changed instantly. "Stay inside," he said. "I'm coming." He arrived fast, but not fast enough to stop the next part. A figure was already at my porch when I cracked the door open, close enough that I could smell coffee and cigarettes. He wore a dark jacket with a stitched emblem that looked like an HOA logo, except we both knew it was fake. He held up a key ring. A brass tag dangled from it, stamped with 2 words, Lot 47. "You're gonna wish you let her have the pool," he whispered. My pulse jumped so hard I felt it in my throat. Headlights swept across my yard. Mercer's SUV sliding to a stop. The hooded man didn't run like a panic move. He just drifted backward into shadow and disappeared between hedges like he knew the neighborhood better than I did. Mercer and I replayed the porch footage frame by frame until we caught it. Lot 47 wasn't a house. It was an empty plot owned by some shell company on county records. Mercer's jaw tightened. "This isn't about a birthday party," he said. "It's about the land." We drove out to Lot 47 while the sky was still dark, tires crunching over broken dirt. It looked abandoned, weeds, torn fencing, nothing that screamed urgent. Then Mercer's flashlight hit a tarp, and everything changed. Under it sat an industrial generator, heavy-duty construction grade, the kind you don't hide unless you're doing something you don't want seen. Thick cables ran from it, buried in the dirt, snaking toward my property line. "They're tapping your utilities," Mercer muttered, following the cords. "Power, maybe water, straight into whatever they're running here." My stomach dropped. My summer bills, the normal spike I'd shrugged off because of the pool pump. It hadn't been normal. We pulled another tarp back and found sealed crates with overseas shipping labels. Mercer pried one open and froze. Inside were cases of surveillance gear, cameras, microphones, drone kits, stuff you don't buy at a hardware store. I swallowed hard. "What the hell is this?" Mercer didn't even finish answering because 3 black SUVs barreled onto the lot, headlights blasting us like interrogation lamps. 6 men stepped out wearing matching dark jackets, no names, no badges, just that same fake HOA emblem on their sleeves. Mercer's hand went to his holster. "Stay behind me," he said low. One of the men called out, "This is private property." Mercer gave a short, bitter laugh. "Not anymore. It's a crime scene." And then his radio crackled. "Movement at Carter's residence, possible forced entry." I didn't think. I moved. We tore back through the neighborhood, and when my house came into view, my back gate was wide open. Light spilled from inside. A shadow stood in my kitchen holding something bulky ripped open like a mechanic's project. My pool pump, except it wasn't a pump anymore. It had been gutted, rewired, rebuilt circuit boards, blinking transmitter, a metal casing that looked military adjacent in the worst way. They turned my pool equipment into a relay. The man saw me and hesitated for half a second. That was all I needed. I lunged, grabbed his arm, slammed him into the counter. The device hit the floor with a hard clatter. Mercer burst in behind me, gun drawn. "Don't move." The guy sneered like he was proud. "You have no idea what you're messing with," he said. Mercer picked up the device, eyes narrowing. "Oh, I've got a pretty good idea," he said, voice flat. "This isn't theft. This is federal." And right on cue, sirens, unmarked vans, men in tactical gear moving like they'd rehearsed this 100 times. An FBI agent in a windbreaker stepped up onto my porch like it belonged to him. "Mr. Carter?" he asked. I nodded, still breathing hard, hands shaking, part adrenaline, part anger, part pure disbelief. "We've been tracking this group for months," he said. "Your property has been used as a covert relay point for illegal overseas communication." I stared at him. "You're telling me my pool pump was a spy transmitter?" He didn't flinch. "Yes. They tore up sections of my yard, pulled cables I didn't know existed, opened cases I didn't know were buried. Then the agent came back with a waterproof folder and flipped it open on my porch. Inside were files, addresses, bank accounts, personal details of people on my street. The top page had my name on it. My mouth went dry. Before I could speak, another call crackled over their radios. Target spotted, east end of the neighborhood, moving on foot. We moved fast, agents Mercer and me, because at that point it didn't feel like a choice. If someone had been using my home as a tool, I wasn't going to stand still and let them vanish. Under a flickering streetlight near the edge of the block, a man waited in a dark coat like he'd been expecting us. He lowered his hood, and I felt my stomach turn because I recognized him. Thomas Dalton, retired soft-spoken, the guy everyone thought spent his days gardening and waving from his porch. The harmless neighbor 2 streets over. He looked at me and gave a thin smile. "You should have left it alone, Carter," he said. This neighborhood runs on order, and I decide what that order is. The FBI agent stepped forward. It's over. We have the equipment. We have your people. Dalton's smile didn't hold. Not when a drone buzzed overhead camera locked onto a black sedan trying to slip away behind us, broadcasting its path live. Agents moved in. Cuffs snapped shut. Dalton's face finally cracked just a flash of real panic before they hauled him toward a van. He didn't get a speech. He didn't get a comeback. He got consequences. And as they drove him away, I stood there in the cold air thinking about my empty pool and how close I came to letting a bully borrow my backyard just to avoid conflict. Because the truth is, when you hand over your boundaries to keep the peace, you don't get peace. You get a bigger invasion. Lesson: protect what's yours the first time, or someone else will decide it's theirs.